What I would like to talk about today is something that strangely fits in a small box in an archive far, far away from where I am now. But first, I would like to talk about something that lives closer to me. Twice Hilde, painted around 1929, is an artwork by Karl Hubuk. The person that appears not only once but twice is Hilde Isai Hubuk, as seen by the painter. Karl Hubuk shows his then wife Hilde in this mysterious artwork that lives now at the Thyssen-Bornemisza Museum in Madrid. This is only one half of a painting that originally offered 4 versions of Hilde. The other half is on display at the Pinakothek der Moderne in Munich. It is looking at these paintings that we can confront a complex and difficult to swallow reality, which is that Hilde, artist in her own right, who had to reinvent herself in the countries that she had to migrate to, is not known for that. Hilde enters museums and enters the histories of art because of one reason only, because Karl saw her and painted her. Hilde enters visual culture as a model, seated, impatient, in awe, and sexual availability. And debatably, Hilde is none of these women. Finding Hilde, exiled, female, artist, is way more complicated. Try look for pictures of migrant women in general. We find men working, posing in front of their businesses. The image of women is most often limited to wedding pictures or images sent as souvenirs back home. And when they traveled alone, who was there to take pictures? Who was there to tell the stories? This is also Hilde's case. She traveled alone to the US in 1939. A 34-year-old woman, white, black hair, 6 feet tall, green eyes. We have this description thanks to her declaration of intentions as a migrant in the US. This time, the artist is the US Department of Immigration and Homeland Security. Hilde enters the country as a divorcee, and in profession, one can read photographer. Hilde was an excellent photographer that years before had studied at the Bauhaus, the experimental school in Germany known for its intentions of reform of art education as a base for transforming the bourgeoisie of the time. Hilde studied with Peter Hans, even though she never officially enrolled. On the lists, she appears as guest student, and it shows that Hilde was never formally evaluated. It was the early 1930s, and with the rise of the Nazi Party, Hilde saw her future and life in danger. So her migration began. First, Hilde went to Vienna until the death of her mother, and then she moved to London. From there, she departed to New York City, where she arrived in January 1939. Hilde established herself professionally in New York City and appeared on The New Yorker, offering her services on an ad that reads, "The Modern Approach to Child Photography." It is in this way that Hilde presents herself to her potential clients in the country that was to become her home. At this point, we must stop and wonder, why, how is it that we only know about Hilde from the perspective of others? Let's recap. First, we see Hilde as a model, as seen by Karl Hubuk. Then we see Hilde as a student who refuses to enroll, refuses to take exams, sort of this rebellious figure. Then, courtesy of the US Department of Homeland Security, we have a very detailed portrayal of Hilde, green eyes, 6 feet tall, 34 years old. And then we see her in a transformed persona as this photographer of children. Again, we have to wonder, where is Hilde really? And does Hilde really exist? And she exists in a small box in the archives of the Museum of Modern Art. This is where we see Hilde as an artist with an individual and trammeled voice. In this small box, Hilde exists. In this box, there is an opportunity to think about those other missing boxes, needed to build the narrative of those other migrant female artists. The power of these pieces is clearly to expand the visual worlds of modern art. They challenge ourselves and push us to think that maybe it is not only that half of modern art is missing. Maybe what's missing is the very essence of modern art. It is, all in all, that modern old idea of modern art in your life. We must ask ourselves, what kind of lives and what kind of daily actions have we been considering if female exiled stories are not included? What kind of actions have we been discussing that can permeate daily living, that can change the ways of seeing and understanding the world around us if a large part of the population has not been included in the histories of modern art? These stories are in many cases already gone, and in others they are hidden in small boxes like Hilde's, full of potential to disturb, trouble, stir things up, and reclaim art as a human necessity, regardless of gender, race, origin, ability, or condition. To understand that the creative act and the essence of art depends on the diversity of perspectives to be and exist as an honest reaction to the difficulties, to the challenges, to the amazingness of the human experience. And it is exciting to think that such big ideas can live in such a small box. That's why we need to find those other boxes. That's why we need to know more about those other Hildes, to challenge the viewer to think about other ways of making in daily life, no matter the trajectory, regardless of where we come from.